Everywhere I go, I find comments about Randy Pitchford. And let's just say they're never positive. But why? What has Randy done to gain such a bad reputation? Well, wonder no longer, because in today's video, we'll be exploring the top 10 reasons why everybody hates Randy Pitchford. I hope you enjoy. Number 10. Duke 3D Contributions. The first time anyone would hear of Randy was in 1996 when he was hired by 3D Realms to work on the upcoming update for Duke 3D. However, shortly after the release, controversy would follow when one of the previous level designers, Richard Gray, stated that a number of the levels featured in the update were mostly his work and naturally expressed some disappointment that he wasn't being credited. And although Randy was not the only person to be accused, Levelord specifically calls out the level Pigsty as being the one that was least changed from his original version, even going as far as to say that it was 99.44% his creation. So to see Randy credited as the sole level designer must have really pissed him off. But it's all water under the bridge now, as the two appear to be on friendly terms. And they even worked together on the 20th anniversary World Tour. Borderlands Code Hunters. In the original trailer for Borderlands, we'll see that, curiously, it has a completely different art style than it would end up with in the final game. Late into development, Randy and his team at Gearbox decided that the game lacked visual finesse, and worried that it might be overlooked, searched elsewhere for some much-needed inspiration. Enter Ben Hibben with his short film Code Hunters. Do the scenes in this video seem familiar to you? Well, despite its appearance, this is not Borderlands, although I think you could be forgiven for thinking it was. But could this sudden change in art style all be down to coincidence? Perhaps Gearbox just came up with this style on their own, right? Well, of course not. Prior to the graphics overhaul, Gearbox were actually in talks with Ben, asking him to come on board to direct and design some cutscenes for the game. Speaking in an interview with Gather Your Party, Ben had this to say: "I was contacted by Gearbox prior to the redesign of the game, in 2008. To be absolutely clear, I have never created or designed anything for Gearbox or Borderlands. Gearbox saw my work and decided to reproduce it, make it their own, without my help or my consent." Ouch. So instead of hiring Ben, they just completely ripped him off, which no doubt saved them a bit of money. And to the surprise of no one, no mention was given to Ben or Code Hunters in the game's credits. Plagiarized artwork. Further controversy would come to light when it was discovered that a piece of art created for Borderlands 2 featured plagiarized work. These are the pieces in question. On the left is Borderlands 2, and on the right we have the Empire Strikes Back poster created by artist Ollie Moss. And if we overlay the two, it's easy to see that the sky effect isn't just inspired, but a one-for-one copy. Props to Ollie Moss for his handling of the situation here. Granted, this one wasn't done directly by Randy, and it's impossible to tell whether he knew about it or not. But after ripping off the whole art style from Code Hunters, I wouldn't put it past him. And besides, this is his company. He's the one calling the shots here. Borderlands 3. More controversy would follow in the wake of the Borderlands 3 announcement. First of all, the game was set to be an exclusive for the Epic Games Store, which of course nobody wanted. This deal would mean that the game would not be available on Steam for 6 whole months, leading to backlash from fans who have no interest in using the Epic launcher, some even going as far as to call for a boycott of the game. And on top of this, the inclusion of microtransactions poured more fuel on the fire. Randy would publicly state that there would be no microtransactions.
But we're not doing any of that free-to-play junk. There's not going to be any microtransactions. There's not going to be any of that nonsense.
But when interviewed by Game Informer, fellow Gearbox developer Paul Sage said that there were in fact microtransactions in the game. This little mix-up would lead to Randy tweeting up a storm, accusing Game Informer of clickbait and causing confusion. But this guy perfectly sums it up. Aliens, Colonial Marines. Aliens Colonial Marines has to be one of the higher profile fuck-ups that Randy has graced us with. For a start, the game looked completely different and a lot better in pre-release media. Upon release, it became obvious that we'd been lied to and completely misled. The game shipped with numerous technical issues. The AI was allegedly broken due to a typo in the code, not to mention the insane amount of bugs. But what really made people angry was how much Randy was bigging it up before release.
We're not settling. A lot of games based on licenses, they become kind of work for hire projects, just milking a franchise. You know, when Gearbox works in other people's space, it's because we love that space and we want to. When you think about...
In reality, the development was largely outsourced to lesser-known developers, and even led to one of them, Timegate Studios, having to file for bankruptcy. It's no wonder why people were pissed at Randy. If he was so passionate about the Alien franchise, why did he outsource the development of the game? And due to the severity of the situation, a class action lawsuit was filed that accused Gearbox and Sega of false advertisement by showing demos that did not accurately represent the game. Gearbox claimed that advertising was the sole responsibility of the publisher and successfully wormed their way out of any repercussions, whereas Sega had to pay $1.25 million due to the lawsuit. Animal cruelty. There's no shortage of social media posts that have gotten Randy into hot water, but this one is so messed up, I think it deserves its own entry on the list. In this example, he retweeted a disturbing video that shows a kitten and a crab that had been put together in a situation where they would inevitably fight each other. The video ends with the crab pinching the kitten, who thrashes around and cries out in pain. Pitchford would follow up by saying, "I tend to favor curiosity and disfavor setting up a feeling and empathetic creature for discomfort. Yet among the negative reactions I felt watching this, there's also some other stuff that isn't exactly negative. This makes me curious about how other people react." Okay, well, am I missing something? I don't see any way this video could be spun to be anything other than negative, and naturally most people were outraged by his response. It's very clear that Randy needs to have all of his social posts vetted and approved by someone that isn't a complete moron. Randy versus Claptrap. In 2019, David Eddings, who was the voice actor known for portraying Claptrap in the Borderlands games, accused Randy of assault during the 2017 Game Developers Conference. Eddings, who for a time was even a high-level executive at Gearbox, claimed that after bringing up the calendar lawsuit, more on that later, and after also mentioning that he'd heard rumors that Gearbox were to be bought out, said that Randy physically shoved him. Following the incident, Eddings was let go from Gearbox and, as such, never returned to reprise his role. Pitchford would deny the allegations, and while Gearbox stated they took the matter seriously, they refrained from making any further comments on the matter, stating it was a personal issue. Duke Nukem franchise. After what felt like an endless period in development limbo, the prospect of a release for Duke Nukem Forever appeared bleak when 3D Realms announced its closure in 2009. And to make matters worse, publisher Take-Two sued 3D Realms' parent company, Apogee Software, for failing to deliver the game. Randy, who had formerly been employed at 3D Realms, recognized an opportunity and made a deal. He planned to use his positive relationship with Take-Two to negotiate the dismissal of the lawsuit against Apogee, but in return, they would need to sell the Duke Nukem intellectual property to Gearbox. And then, in 2011, we got Duke Nukem Forever. And we all know how that went. But what annoys me the most about the whole situation is how Duke just sits there on a shelf without any hope of a new game. Why go out of your way to acquire the franchise if you're not going to do anything with it? Then we have Duke Nukem 3D 20th Anniversary World Tour, which on paper sounds great. A new episode, new music, new graphics. But to make way for this release, the Megaton Edition was delisted from digital stores. Okay, so why is this a problem? Well, for a start, the Megaton Edition included 3 expansion packs, which are absent in World Tour. But the thing that does it for me is how utterly unresponsive the weapon select is. You will think your mouse wheel is broken, but no, that's just how the game is. Aiming doesn't feel right either. These issues would seem to be an easy fix, but they were never addressed by Gearbox. Then there's the issue of the pricing. They delisted a perfectly good version of the game, so they could sell you this at a jacked up price. So in summary, the combination of unmet expectations, quality issues, and a perceived lack of care for the franchise contributes to the anger and disappointment many fans feel towards Gearbox Software's handling of Duke Nukem. Unpaid bonuses. Apparently, employees at Gearbox earn less than the average salary for game developers. But to compensate for this, the studio offers a profit-sharing program where staff receive bonuses based on game sales. The profits are said to be divided with 60% going to the studio, and the remaining 40% is shared among the employees. Sounds pretty good so far. So when publisher 2K Games announced that Borderlands 3 had sold more than 5 million copies in its first 5 days on the market, you can bet employees were eagerly awaiting their promised bonuses. Unfortunately for them, Randy had different plans. According to a report from Kotaku, a meeting was called where Randy told staff that due to the increased development costs of Borderlands 3 and recent growth of the company, bonuses would be much lower than expected, which must have been soul-crushing news for the developers. But Randy being Randy felt that he had to chime in with a series of tweets where he essentially calls it all a big lie and calls out Kotaku for their tabloid-tier reporting. Whether it's true or not, I don't know, but there's no denying that wherever Randy goes, controversy follows him like a bad smell. The USB incident. In 2018, Randy and Gearbox Software were involved in a legal battle with their own former lawyer, Wade Callender. The whole thing is a bit of a shit show, really, but I'll try to explain it as best I can. It all started in November of 2018, when Gearbox filed a lawsuit against Callender, alleging that he misused company funds to pay for his personal expenses. Callender would retaliate with a countersuit of his own, where he threw down some pretty serious allegations against Randy. One of these allegations being that he struck a secret side deal with Borderlands Borderlands publisher, 2K Games, to secure a super sneaky personal $12 million bonus, all while denying raises to employees. The lawsuit also contains serious allegations of misconduct against Pitchford, such as leaving a USB drive in a medieval-themed restaurant that contained confidential Gearbox documents pertaining to upcoming projects and information from business partners. But that's not even the worst bit. This is pretty extreme, so please be warned. Okay, so the lawsuit also claims that the USB drive contained Randy's personal collection of underage pornography. Imagine being the poor soul that found that USB. And just one day after this would all go public, Pitchford would attempt to clear his name by describing the video as barely legal, which he'd saved to his USB drive because he was interested in the magic tricks the cam girl was performing. Anyway, lawyers representing both parties would release a statement saying that all the evidence has exonerated Randy, and that all misunderstandings between them have been resolved. So there you have it, the top 10 reasons why everybody seems to have a problem with Randy Pitchford. But I'd like to know, what do you think? Is he misunderstood? Or does he deserve the criticism? Let me know in the comments below, and until next time, cheers.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to Revenant Evil, or I'll kick your ass.